Welcome back to the Always Reading Book Club. It is your girl Kiki Reader, and we have a new series that we are going to dive into today. And this comes courtesy of Trini Starr. You gave this suggestion in one of the comments. I can't thank you enough. I absolutely loved it. It hit all the great points. It was wonderful. And so this goes for any of you. If you have any type of suggestions of any books you'd like for me to review for you, feel free to drop down in those comments, and I will definitely look into doing it in a future episode. I absolutely love this one. So this is a duet series, and it's called Love is War. That's the name of the duet series, and it is by R K Lilley, and the first book in the series is called Breaking Him. We meet Scarlett and find out that she is a flight attendant. She's also an actress who has recently been in a commercial, but it's still not going her acting career the way she would like for it to go. So she sees her ex Dante, and she goes and puts on her favorite red lipstick, sexy red pumps, loosens her top 3 buttons of her blouse, and she struts out to see him. So she describes how toxic they are with each other, and basically when they see each other, they spew out extremely hateful things. Only this time, he didn't do that. And she had offered him like more champagne, but I guess it was like beneath his taste, as he's like rich, trust fund kid. And he just tells her that we need to talk, but not here. He asks her for a gin and tonic, and she makes the drink extremely strong. And when he tastes it, he knew what she was trying to do, which is get him drunk. But he was someone who couldn't back away from a challenge, and so she kept giving him drinks, and it wound up being like 5, and he drank all of them. So he was completely drunk and was the last person on the plane. So the other flight attendants had to help him with this stuff, and by the time Scarlett walks past him, he was sitting down and yelled to her, "You won this round." So we get a flashback. So this book does that. It goes between, so you're going to hear me say flashback, present. So we get a flashback of Scarlett and Dante, whom they've known each other since they were around the 4th grade. So Dante's rich, she's dirt poor. Their grandmothers are best friends. Scarlett's grandmother, I think, works for Dante's parents. So both Scarlett and Dante used to get in a lot of fights as a kid. They both had, or shall we say, still have anger and rage issues. Scarlett is always getting picked on and called trash can girl because her mother left her in the trash can when she was a baby, and it made the news. And so everyone knows about this. And so mean people, aka kids, that's what they do. So they call her that. So Dante's grandmother is the only one who convinced Scarlett's grandma to take her, because initially she didn't want to take the child. So she's one of those people who kind of feel like the child should be grateful to them, even though they call them all kind of names. She's despicable to the girl, but still feels like you should be grateful that I took you. Thus the reason Scarlett believes she's trash, but at the same time, she's not going to let you call her trash and not do anything. So this particular day, she and Dante had been waiting outside of the vice principal's office. So they both had fights, but separate of each other. So she starts talking to him. They have a little conversation back and forth. His mother came in to speak with the vice principal. They left the door open when they went into the office. And so she, of course, was eavesdropping. But we find out the reason that he was fighting was because a boy that was in his class was talking really badly about Scarlett. And apparently the teachers and even the vice principal, when these kids say things to her, they laugh it off. And so he went off on the vice principal. This is a 4th grader. Went off on the principal, told him, you all allow this behavior. You're horrible. And he went off. And so from that day forward, that was her very first friend. So we come back to the present. Scarlett has a 24-hour layover in San Francisco, and so her and the girls go out to a bar that they frequent when in town. So she's friends with 3 other flight attendants. So she wants to get drunk, but doesn't quite make it as Dante shows up. So he wants to talk, and so they go outside and they have a little back and forth, and then he asks again, to talk somewhere privately. So she thought he was trying to sleep with her, but he was like, that's not why we need to talk. So she's going to go to his hotel room, and so she goes and says goodbye to the girls, in the bar. She leaves. At first, though, before she leaves, they, of course, are like, are you sure this is a good idea? Because one of the friends knows the full history of her and Dante, and the other one's just to know that it's a rough one, But at the same time, they also knew she was going to go regardless, so just let her be. So he told her he needed to talk to her, but she just started taking off her bottoms, her panties. And he, of course, was like, you know what, fuck it. So they have a nice hard fuck, and it's filled with like all these back and forths, them saying stuff. It's like a hate fuck session. So she leaves after he goes to sleep, and she writes on the bathroom mirror, nice talk, don't call me, stay off my flight. She wrote it in her in the lipstick. We get another flashback of when they were younger, and she got in trouble after a student named, his name was Tommy Mann. He poured a trash can on top of her. How awful. She punched him, and then he punched her, and then she kicked him in the balls. So she got taken to the office. So one of Dante's friends, whose name is Nate, had gotten a hall pass and went and told Dante what happened. Dante went in the classroom, beat up the Tommy kid, then went in the office and yelled at the vice principal. And he was like, you know what happened, or did you even ask her what happened? Is actually what he said. And he went off on the woman. I was like, oh my gosh, this is... This little boy, I mean, don't get it twisted. Like, he's standing up for someone that is being treated horribly. But I'm like, the balls on this kid. And he told the vice principal she's leaving and took her out. So before they left, he also told the vice principal that his grandmother, who apparently gives like a lot of money to the school, and she's also in good with the school board, she's on her way. So he takes her to go put some ice on where she got hit, and she was like, it's no big deal. Then she tells him she loves him, and he says, I love you too, with no hesitation. I thought that was super sweet. So we come back to the present, and Scarlett has a 4-day break, which she is not looking forward to. So she lives with the other 3 flight attendants that are her friends. And even though it's crazy, because at first she didn't really like them, because she's not really a girl's girl, but these people she has grown to love. She's really grown to love them. So she bakes and drinks when she's wired, which is what she is right now. And so she baked some cupcakes, and she drank some cheap scotch. So she received a package, and it was from Dante, and it was a pair of red Christian Louis Vuittons, and it had a note. He then sent her a text from an unknown number, and then she sent him back a video of her throwing the shoes out the window. Her roommate Demi was outside, and she caught him. So the girl wasn't really trying to throw him away, but she just needed to give him the illusion that she was throwing these expensive shoes away. So then she got a message that said, no worries, I'm almost there. I'll get them for you. So she had to go and hide the shoes, and then he shows up, and they have this back and forth. And then finally he tells her that he has to tell her something. And she's like, well, just spit it out. His grandma has died. So we find out she had a stroke. So she, of course, was destroyed because she loved this woman. She called her Graham because that woman loved her. And they still talk once a week. And she had just talked to her 2 days ago. So she stumbled, and he caught her, and she just let it all out, and she just cried and cried. So she's a whole bumbling mess, and he tells her that the funeral's the day after tomorrow, and he's already booked her a flight, and he'll send her the arrangements. So then Demi comes to the door and says, your boyfriend's here. So Dante's pissed. And so he's like, you have a boyfriend? Does your boyfriend know that we fucked last night bareback? And he said it super loud, so everyone could hear it. So she was like, what does it matter? And he was like, it matters a lot. So then she just said, when do I leave? And he told her the time, and then he just left. So we're having a flashback to the past. So we find out that Dante's grandmother was a Hollywood star back in her day, and there have been many books written about her life's work as well as her love life. So she would give the books to Scarlett to read after she begged, and then she would have tons of questions. So her grandmother, I'm going to just say her grandmother, because that's what she calls her, even though it's not by blood, but that's how she treated her, and that's how she loved her. So her grandmother saw the love that they had for each other, Scarlett and Dante, and told her, how lucky she was to have found it so soon in her life. So the grandmother also told her, she should be an actress because she was stunning. And she even told her, do you ever wonder why people stare at you? And she thought because she was a trash can baby. And she let her know it was because she was stunning, and they called her names because they were jealous and wanted to tear her down. And Gran told her, she should pursue acting, and she told her, I'll give it a try for you. And that's what she's done ever since. Because I think it said she'd been in, 27, 28-ish. So she's been there for quite a few years. So we come back to the present. Dante leaves, and the guy who is there, his name's Anton. He's just her friend. And Demi was just trying to help by saying that it was her boyfriend. So she tells him about Graham, and they were just like so sorry because they knew what that woman meant to her. So then they all got plastered. So they had convos about love, and Demi really saw even more so how jaded Scarlett really was. Anton apparently was jaded like Scarlett, but they hadn't hooked up, as she just wanted to keep him as a friend. But Demi, she can kind of see, has a crush on Anton, and Anton seems like he's kind of feeling her. But Scarlett's a little like, I'm going to have a conversation with both of them because he will probably destroy the poor girl. And so he's looking, because she could tell, he's looking like he's interested in Demi. So Demi had made the statement that she thought that Dante hated her the way Scarlett spoke of him. But then Scarlett was like, he's just good at hiding it. He's a lying, cheating bastard. She goes back home, and all we know is that it's outside of Seattle. So that's it. So I don't know I don't ever remember reading the actual name of the city. So Dante has arranged for a driver to come and pick her up. She thought she was going to a hotel, but she was taking to Grand's house. Dante was there, and they have their back and forth as normal. And he tells her to make sure she gets anything that means anything to her from the house, because I'm sure it's going to be sold by whoever inherits it. So then we find out that the reason she had a room at the mansion was because her actual grandmother had kicked her out in high school. I think she was like 17, and she moved in with Dante's grandmother. So she tells him, there's nothing in the house she wants to keep, and thinks it's a point in her favor, but it doesn't really feel like it. So she thought it was a jab to say there's nothing here I would want, but then it didn't have the effect she thought. Because they have this thing going back, but it seems like right now she's doing it more so than him, but it's like a history of like saying hurtful things to one another, and it's like keeping score because they both love challenges. It's kind of crazy. So she goes to her old room, and Dante follows her, of course, and he tells her again to check the drawer before his mother gets there. And he leaves, and then she looks in and sees the white box. We don't know what was in the white box, but I think it was a ring. She goes to give it back to Dante, but stumbles upon him with a woman named Tiffany, who is apparently the person he left her for, thus making her feel like trash all over again because the Tiffany girl comes for money. So her and Dante go back in her room, and she tries to give it to him, and the box to him, and he was like, Graham wanted you to have it, and if you leave it, my mom's going to get it. And then he leaves out. So she decides to put it on her gold chain. That's the reason I think it was a ring. So she's going to hide it in her dress, because I guess the way her dress is made, you can't see what's around her neck. And she's also going to wear her red Louis Vuittons that he gave her. And she's also wearing like this tight black dress. So we have a flashback. When Scarlett was 14, she had a growth spurt and she felt super awkward. And so one day at Dante's house, because Dante's house is on the property of the grandmothers. You know, when you have those, mega mansions, um, it's one of those type of situations. So she got caught by his mother, and she went in on Scarlett. And she showed Scarlett a picture of Tiffany Vanderkamp and said that Dante was going to marry her after college. Now, at this time, she and Dante hadn't even kissed, but her mother thought that they were fucking and called her a slut and said, enjoy it while you can, and then made her stuff the picture in her bag. What kind of fucked up did you have to be to tell a 14-year-old kid, like you're threatened? You're a whole fucking ass adult, and you feel threatened some type of way by this little girl because you can tell that your son really cares about her. And it's not because you feel like he's too young to love. That's not it. Because you've already married him off and are saying that he's going to marry somebody else. They're 14. But anyway, I digress. We come back to the present. Dante comes to her room when it's time to go. And the first thing she says is, I'm not traveling in the same car with Tiffany. And he's like, we aren't. It's just going to be you and me. He was like, I only made arrangements for the two of us. So I don't know, where she's staying, what she's got going on. So on the way there, she starts in with him when she asked about his dad. So apparently he has mistresses. And she asked if he had come with one of them. And then she made the comment, like father, like son. Dude lost it. He was like, of all the days, can you stop? Not on the day we have to bury Graham. And then she felt like shit. What she should have. It's like, how much the man loved his grandmother. You know how much you loved her. Like, come on. Like, you got to chill with the digs. I get it. There's this massive history going on. But, bitch, you got to fucking chill. Because it's you are too much. So they go to the funeral. And, of course, that's when it really hits her when she sees her in the casket. And it really magnifies the fact that, oh my God, I'm never going to be able to talk to her anymore. Like, this is the person I tell all my secrets to, and I don't have it anymore. So they sit together on the front row. Tiffany sits directly behind them. She tries to put her hands on Dante's shoulders. He just shrugs them away, and then he puts his hand on Scarlett's knee, like the, knee thigh, that area, because it calms him. But then his mother comes in. She sits next to Tiffany, and he removes his hand. So apparently he never touches her in front of his mother, which is weird. And you wonder, okay, what exactly is this about? Is this because you're embarrassed of her, or is this because you're terrified of what the mother could do to her? And I could see that, you're trying to protect. But at the same time, if you're like always in her face, the mother knows this person means something. So I don't know. That was kind of, I don't really like that. So we find out that apparently Dante is the only legitimate son, and that the father has at least 4 other sons from different mistresses. They think he might even have daughters, but he just doesn't claim the daughters. So I'm like, damn. That's a lot. 4 different, and they're all different women. It's not like, I'm like, whoa. So after the ceremony, they're at the gravesite. She's leaving, and she runs into her actual grandmother, and she, of course, is nasty as fuck to her. We find out she hasn't been back to this town in 10 years, and given the way that the grandmother speaks to her, I get it. I understand why. It's like, how do you have such animosity for her for not coming back to visit? You kicked her out at 17. You talked to her, treated her as if you hated her, and I'm supposed to come back and visit you and talk to you? No. But she freezes up. Scarlett also has a stuttering issue. Like, it's gotten better as she, has gotten older, but when she gets too worked up or anything, she can't, that stuttering will come out. Well, she didn't stutter, but she froze up. She couldn't say anything at her grandmother's insults because the woman was saying, oh, you wear red shoes to a funeral and a tight dress. Like, you're such, calling her a whore. Like, is that why you've been gone is that what you do in Hollywood? Is that how you get your parts? I mean, nasty to the girl. So Dante defends her because she walked off. She like, well, damn near ran off. And was like, how do you think Graham would feel you doing this today? The day we got to bury her. This is the day you talk to her like that. And he told her, maybe if you didn't treat her so bad, she might call you from time to time. Because I'm sure she knew about the calls between his grandmother and Scarlett. I'm sure she knew about them. And I'm sure it made her feel some type of way. But again, how can you treat somebody like shit their entire fucking life and then be shocked that when they get away from you, they want nothing to do with you? So Scarlett runs off, and she never heard the ending of that conversation. So he catches up to her, and then they have this back and forth because she was like, it's not your job to defend me since you broke up with me. And he was saying, when did this ever stop being my job? And I didn't dump you. So then they head back to the house, dreading to see everyone there. While in the car before he drove off, he kissed her and was like, I know you missed this. And she, of course, was like, I don't. It was a lie. So they get to Graham's house, and there's cars all over the lawn. And the Graham would have hated that because she took like super pride in her lawn. And the mother knows that, and she hated her mother-in-law. So, of course, they know she was doing it in spite. So she goes in the back way and then goes in the kitchen, loses her MAC lipstick, and it falls in the trash can. And as she's getting it out, these classmates come in and say something like, some things just never change. Look at Trash Can Girl. And then she goes off on them and she tells them to leave because they're guests and guests aren't allowed in the kitchen. They call her a charity case. And then in her mind, she almost starts doubting how much Graham loved her because of what they said to her. I was like, oh, poor thing. So Dante comes in, tells them to leave the kitchen. And if they say anything out of the way, they'll be kicked out of the house. Her and Dante talk, and basically he says he prefers defending her instead of this evil game they've been playing for years. So we get a flashback. When she was in high school, everything changed because Dante was like really good in sports and he became popular. She didn't. The girls taunted her because she had Dante and they didn't. So she winds up smashing one of the chicks' head into a stall. But the heifer had poured Gatorade on her after calling her like all kinds of names. And then getting mad when like she would engage in the bullshit. So I'm like, hell, then you deserve it. So I think the heifer's name was like Mandy. And she was also the person who was bothering her that was making the comments at Graham's house in the present time. So her father was the sheriff, and so they, of course, tried to manhandle her. And Dante, as always, came to her defense and got Graham there, and she barely escaped. She didn't have to go to, they didn't haul her off to jail. So we come back to the present. They're watching old movies of Graham. But before they had started, a man had walked up to Scarlett and asked her, did she remember him? And he said he was a doctor that treated her once, and then he left. So I'm wondering what that's about. So then one of Dante's old football teammates came over and they talked. She left because she never was friends with any of his football teammates. She goes in the kitchen, and then Tiffany comes in. So we find out that apparently Tiffany and Dante had been engaged at one point. I am so ready for that story. And that she is also going to be staying at Graham's house since her parents are renovating their home, which is crazy because they have a mansion. It's like 10 rooms. You trying to tell me ain't not one room? And she even says this to her, like, you mean to tell me there's not one room available, a couch, So they have their back and forth, and then Dante comes in, and Tiffany tries to hug him, and he pushes her away. This is my thing with it. If somebody is showing me that they don't want me at all, I don't care if it's in front of this particular person or whatever, that should be enough for you to stop. Like, if I try and touch you and you push me away, bitch, I'm not trying to touch you again, But she keeps trying. And I'm like, ain't that much love in the world. Like, he clearly doesn't want you. So I'm just like, oof. So they have a flashback, and it was one of the summers where Tiffany was staying with his parents. So right there, that's kind of like, you clearly see the influence the mother's trying to start. Let's keep him, let's keep her, let's introduce her into the fold. He needs to like have Tiffany around. It was one of those type of things. I'm not going into full detail about the summer because that's just too long. We'll be here all day and night. So we come back to the present. He dismissed Tiffany from the kitchen. She said, "You sure you want to do that?" And he said, "Absolutely, leave us." So we find out that he had also been engaged to Scarlett at one point. That story should be good as well. So they talk, and he wants to know how long she's been seeing the guy with the man bun, aka Anton. And she was like, "I don't owe you an answer." And he told her, "I remember him from a pilot you shot years ago. Has it been since then? Did you fuck him the same night you had my cum inside you?" And she was like, "You're a lunatic." So then she yelled at him about Tiffany staying there, and he really didn't know about that. And so he was like, "I'll be in your room filling you with cum over and over again. So it really doesn't matter." So she leaves to go mingle what she hates, but she had to get away from Dante. So she talked to the sheriff, Harold, the Mandy's girl's dad, and then the boy Tommy, who had punched her and poured the trash can on her head in grade school. He comes up to her. He looked bad. She didn't recognize him. He looked pudgy. He looked older. He didn't look good. And she almost didn't recognize him. But he apologized to her and said he had wanted to do it sooner, but Dante had promised to beat him up again if he was within 5 feet of her. And then Dante walks up and says, "Looks like you're closer than 5 feet, Tommy." So then the man apologizes again, and then he runs away. So Dante walks off. She runs into Nate when she left the bathroom. Well, apparently Nate is someone she used to get over Dante, and he and Dante used to be best friends. So Nate fell in love with her, and something happened because he said, "I'm doing much better now and would like to talk to you every now and then if that's okay." So they both could see Dante like in the cut, and he's pissed. He's got his fist balled up. They exchanged numbers, and she told him, how good it was to see him, and that, she would definitely be in touch. So he told her that he better leave now, because before Dante blew a cannon. And so then he also made the comment, it is what it is. Basically, we both fell in love with the same woman. So I'm like, shit. So then Dante's mother, Adelaide, comes up, gets straight to the point, says, "Where's my ring?" Scarlett told her it was Graham's ring. She gave it to Dante, and he gave it to me. She was like, "But you aren't together anymore, and you need to have enough manners to give it back." So Dante walked up. Scarlett dipped into the theater room to watch a documentary on Graham. So sure enough, that night he snuck in and undressed, and they did it over and over again, and he came inside her every time. So the next morning, there's a banging on the door, and it's Tiffany. And so Scarlett opens the door with pleasure. So she was like, "I just had to see it for myself." So then Dante woke up, and Tiffany was like, "I can't believe you did this with me under the same roof." He told her he didn't give a fuck, and she was like, "You'll regret this." So she came at Scarlett, got punched in the face by Scarlett. Dante's brother, Bastian, I guess it's like Sebastian. So Bastion, I guess that's how you say it. He came, he pulled Tiffany away, but Scarlett was like ready to he was like, "No, let her go. Let me finish her." So Tiffany's nose was bleeding at this point. So then Dante and Scarlett shut the door, and he kept asking her, did she feel anything for Nate, or was it just to get back at him? And he kept saying, I need to know. Like, maybe I can get past it. I just gotta know. So he kept asking her this over and over again. So she finally says to him it was to get back at him. So then she asked him the same question about Tiffany, and all he could say was that it was complicated. But deep down she already knew that. So he put a key around her neck. It was on a necklace, and I guess he had done it while she was sleeping. And her thought was like, shit, I don't know if you're putting a key around my neck. I'm already fucking tied to you, you know? So she went to go get coffee. She ran into Bastian. They talk. Apparently, he wants to know if she knows if Adelaide has something on their father, Leo, because he has like all these children from different women and they hate each other. So she told him she doesn't know. And they were a little too close when Dante walked in and he flipped. He got up in Bastian's face and was like, she is off limits. So he leaves to cool off, and then Bastian asked her, ask Dante if he knows anything and like to kind of let him know, and she was like, she'd do it. So she goes to see Dante in the room, and he's already hot, and then she told him something about a past memory. She said that she had told Tiffany when the sheriff had tried to take her away that day, and he lost it. He destroyed the room. His father, Leo, came by and was like, what's going on? And he blamed Scarlett, of course, and he's like, it's your fault. Horrible things have happened to this family ever since we let your trash ass, into. I mean, he was just awful. And she just told him, how about you go fuck another housekeeper? And he left. So then Dante comes out, huffing and puffing, looks at Tiffany and said, you ruined my life. I never want to see you again. Clearly there's another story we have to find out about. I'm so looking forward to finding out about it. So Tiffany starts yelling, what did I do? What did I do? He told her to leave and never come back. Bastian was there and was like, I'll go and take her stuff to her car. And so after she left, Scarlett said, let me pack. And he told her, try it and see what happens. So he didn't let her leave. And the next day they had a field day with each other. Then later on he comes to her and says, you got to go. He's like, my mother's freaking out. We can't read the will today. So she's on her way over and you have got to go. You can't be around my mother when she's deranged like this. So he helped her pack and then he took her to a hotel in Seattle. So the next morning he let it all out. He wanted to be with her. He was like, it's always been, you and me. That's how it's always supposed to have been. And that we don't work without each other. And he took the ring off of her necklace and put it on her finger and told her he'd move to LA the next day if she wanted to. Told her, she doesn't have to answer right now. Just don't say no and think about it. So he took her to the airport. They barely spoke on the way there. And then once she gets on the plane, she just lets her tears fall. So she called him the next day, told him, yes, I want you to move to LA. And he told her, I shouldn't have proposed. We can't be together. It'll never work. She was like, you did this just to mess with me. And he said it again. He's like, we can't be together. It's not going to work. I'm sorry. We can't. And he hung up. We have another flashback. Tiffany's parents bought land close to Dante's grandma's. And so she started going to their school. Of course, Scarlett didn't like it and even gave him the silent treatment for a couple days, like 2 days. So when she did talk to him, she came up to him while everyone was around and started kissing him. And he was like, what's gotten into you? Because he wasn't that crazy about PDA. So she was like, are you embarrassed to me? And then he talked to her and they wind up skipping class and going in the woods to fuck. He didn't have any condoms and so he pulled out, but she saw someone watching them like when they were done, but she didn't know how long they had been there. So she said, it looked like that homeless man that we know from in town. So the next day she took off without waiting for Dante and went through the woods, and something horrible happened that changed everything. And that's how it ends. Oh my gosh. I love this. I want to know so bad what happened. Oh, this was so much. This is a true tale of two really broken people, very possessive about each other's attention. Even though I'm doing the review, I feel like I can't do it justice because it's something I think you need to read to really see the interactions between the two of them, the words that they say to each other. Fucking awful they are. Oh my gosh, they are awful. But we see why she's damaged emotionally because She was found in a trash can. Her grandmother treats her like trash. She goes to school and they treat her like trash. It's like she's constantly being told she's not enough. She has resentment towards Dante because he has money, but he's one of those people that has money, but he's like, he doesn't try and flaunt it. And she doesn't understand that because all she understands is not having enough, and she feels like he's not grateful for what he has. Not understanding that there's a whole nother level of shit you deal with when you do have money. It's a different set of problems, right? So she's very possessive of him. She's very possessive of his time. If you think about it, like if you finally get someone to love you that you don't receive from your mother because she ran away, went off, your grandmother doesn't love you, kids at school treat you like trash, and you finally get someone that loves you, sticks up for you, I feel like that would make someone probably a little bit more crazier than the norm, because all you know is this is the only love I've ever felt. So how do you let that go? And I feel like that's her problem. It's twisted in with hate because of clearly something he's done, which we will find out in book 2. But it is just like, oh my gosh, this is what happens when you don't deal with your shit. This is why you deal with your shit, because if you don't, it can consume you. And that's why I say I can't do it justice with just talking about it. You have to read the words of what they say to each other. It's consuming the way he makes her feel, both good and bad. And it's crazy. So the next and the last book, because it's just a duet in the series, is called Breaking Her. And so we are going to dive into that one next week. Let me know what you guys think of Breaking Him. I absolutely loved it. I was just so enthralled the whole time. Trini Star, I appreciate you for this recommendation because this was so awesome. Again, if you guys have any books you guys want me to review, throw those names down in the comment section, and I will give them a read at some point down the road. If you are in the market for a beautiful notebook, I do have those on sale. That link will be listed down below in the description section. Make sure you like and subscribe. And as always, I truly do thank you all for your support, and thank you for tuning in to the Always Reading Book Club.